Hey guys, forgive me on this video. I took a Cialis earlier in preparation for tomorrow, and it got lodged in my throat. It's an awkwardly hard to deal with kind of feeling, but tomorrow. Anyhow, let's talk about my industry, the tattoo industry. I have a lot to say about this. I got into the tattoo industry when I was 16 years old, so quite some time ago. And it's a long story, but 16 years old, didn't have anywhere to live, had an '88 Camaro, right? Not a Z28, but it was the throttle body 305, 5-speed. I thought it was cool as shit. It's all I had. I met some random guy in Aurora, Colorado that he let me have it on a 4-payment basis, and that's really strange to give some homeless kid, but this guy, he gave it to me, and I made the payments. But I worked the graveyard shift at the Denny's in Aurora, and that was how I made an actual income. Across the street was a mall that had a small tattoo shop inside of it, which is kind of an irregular thing, but it was pretty cool. I had gotten a guy who I'm not gonna talk about him, but I got him to sign as my guardian, and I got a tattoo. So I got my first tattoo. It's covered up now. It's on my right arm. It was a koi fish. I thought it was the coolest thing I ever had. We're in a fucking Aurora, Colorado. It's cold as shit, and I'm homeless. And let me tell you how many sleeves my shirt had, because I thought that I was still kind of fucking cool. I was really fucking cold, is what I was. So, hi niece. I got this tattoo, and I would just hang out. So I got this lady to sign as my mother to get me back into Aurora Central High School, which was as maybe one of 5 white kids, period. So I did that in the mornings. I went to the tattoo shop in between the hours of getting out of school and graveyard shift at Denny's. So they would let me smoke cigarettes with them, hang out. I drew a lot, and they were like, "Oh yeah, man, you're pretty good at this." So they let me sweep the floors. They let me start being involved. I learned how to, set up needles in a needle jig and solder the armature bar to the needles and the groupings and all the random things. I started learning the small parts of the industry, but the very valuable parts of the industry, and then a lot of its beginnings. So that was where I got started. I bought my first machine that was it was called a white tiger. So it said WT on the side of it. So immediately I started getting this retarded nickname of white trash for WT, and then I guess it was fitting in that part of town, but whatever, it worked out. Let's fast forward several years. I still lived in that Camaro for a couple of years. It wasn't a quick upcoming, but I never lost what I learned there. What I did is I learned a lot of lessons, and I learned a lot of mistakes, and I learned a lot of hardships, and there was a lot of really rough times through those years. Let's fast forward to 18 and a half. I find Texas. So Texas is what I thought to be a temporary point in my life, but it turned out to be probably one of the biggest blessings ever. Now I've met the worst people in my life here. I have met the best people in my life here. I've had my greatest blessings here, and I've had, my hardest times here. There's a lot of really rough shit that happened when I was young, like a lot younger, and I don't think that really, it doesn't compare to some of the lessons that I've learned growing as an adult here. I'm not ashamed of any of my past. However, I wish a lot of it wouldn't have happened, but I'm happy it did, because it made me the man I am today, and I really appreciate who I have become today. That led me to a small tattoo shop in Humble, Texas. So I was a hardline mechanic. In the mornings, I worked from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then I went to the tattoo shop from 8 p.m. to either midnight or 2 a.m. And then fast forward to when we all sat around watching you give a roommate. yeah, that was disgusting. Anyhow, Humble, Texas. I was a hardline mechanic in the mornings, 7 a.m. 7 p.m. Tattoo shop from 8 p.m. to either midnight or 2 a.m. and then get a little bit of sleep. And on the 2 days off, I put myself through some time at community college. I did not graduate. I did not get anywhere close to it. I was told that if I stuck with graphic design, that I would easily, with an associate's degree, be able to make an entry-level position of $35,000 a year. And this was, I guess, 2001, 2002. Well, at this point in time, I had started to get pretty decent at tattooing. So I wasn't super popular or anything like that, but I was getting decent. And being decent in a small town in Texas in that period of time wasn't an awful thing. The tattoo industry then wasn't like the tattoo industry now. The tattoo industry now has become so popular based on TV shows. So TV shows have made it so mainstream that as to where the majority of my clientele back then was, bikers, sluts, rebellious kids. There wasn't a lot of money in it. Not a lot of people paid a lot of money for tattoos. It just wasn't as popular. There were artists that were making a lot of money, but they were very sought after, and they were very good. I mean, you had Bob Tyrell. Let's go way back. He was this, phenomenal portrait slash horror artist, and of course, like, I was super sought after. But that came into a very, very specific clientele and demographic. It wasn't everybody that just wanted a tattoo went there. They went to your local shops, and if you found a decent artist that knock out, a butterfly on their hip, it worked out. So that was where I started my main growth, I would say. Once I realized that by wearing myself out, hard labor in the mornings, mental labor in the evenings, and school 2 days a week, I realized that I was never going to make enough money with what school was going to do for me to really survive. Had I have had the ability to stick with school longer and really go after something I wanted, then yeah, sure, absolutely. My wife is still in school for her whole damn life. Hopefully she'll be done in like 3.5, 4 years. But I respect the hell out of her and her drive and what she does. But I had to put in a different drive back in those years, and that drive left me to leave school. I wouldn't call it giving up. I didn't think it was for me, and it was becoming decent. I was making, between a mechanic and tattooing, $35,000 a year. So to stick with school and make it harder to actually go to my jobs, it didn't even make sense anymore. So I thought it was better to delete school. So then I stuck with both of those. Well, another 2 years go, and I'm now actually becoming a reasonably reputable artist in that area, just in that area. And I was building small engines in a little, like, what do you call them, ATVs, Sea-Doos, jet skis, Rotex motors, your smaller, like, 4-cylinder motorcycle motors, 2-stroke motors, whatever, more like toy engines. But that's what I was building. I had a jet ski actually explode on me while I was working on it. It was crazy. I'm not getting into details, but actually ran me blind for almost a week. I burnt everything off my face. And at that point, the owner of the shop was very clear that there was no workers' comp, there was no anything like that. And I had to really sit and think, what is my primary source of income? How am I actually surviving? And that was tattooing. So mechanic, that went out. Now I do that today as a hobby at home, but no longer for a living. And tattooing took main precedence. So let's fast forward to 2006. 2006, I end up visiting Colorado again to see an old friend, and I wanted to work at a tattoo shop, so I found a tattoo shop in Inglewood, Colorado, which is essentially Denver. And I made a really good friend with the owner of that shop. You know, there's a lot of really shitty people in this industry, and he was a good guy. If you're in Colorado, his name's Van Baird, Baird. He's a great guy and a great artist. But he gave me a shot, and then he liked my work, and so he wanted me to go work a convention with him. So I worked my very first convention, which was the Denver Body Art Expo, and we split a booth with the guys from Art Junkies. Now they're out in Hesperia, California, but they to this day are still I look up to them more than anybody else I've met in the industry. And I got to work with Mario Rosenau and Mike DeMasi. Now these two guys work with Mike DeVries and Nico Hurtado. Those are probably names you've heard a little bit more. Mario Rosenau had a really amazing style of taking like new school color blending, but mixing it with some traditional style. It's very unique. It's very cool. Mike DeMasi, similar style for certain applications, but also very cool portrait artist, but different. Did a lot of monochromatic work, and just he stood out. He is still at Art Junkies to this day and does amazing work. But at that point, I had an ego. So at that point, we'll say 2006, people in Humble, Texas knew my name. So I thought that I was hot shit. I thought that I'm Ronnie fucking Byerly. I'm fucking cool. I'm a tattoo artist, and I thought that I was better than people. Okay, I had an attitude like I had no responsibilities. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have much of anything, and I got to where I was making $200, $250, $300 a day when I would be at work, and that seemed like this phenomenal amount of money because there's no responsibilities. There wasn't anything to really pay for other than, I don't know, girls started to like me. There was alcohol. I found alcohol. I didn't really start drinking at all until I was 21 anyways. And I thought I was somebody. I thought that I'm famous. Now, fame is a very stupid thing. I mean, if you achieve it, then awesome. But fame is also just an ego. And an ego will tear you down so quickly, especially within an industry that does. Thank you, Cutter. I'm not so much of a kid anymore. I'm old. But fame, or the idea of fame, is a delusion of grandeur, and it would have been cool. I did some of the TV show shit. I did all the convention circuit. I did all those things, and at some points I thought that I was this special person. I had that attitude of like, I'm Ronnie Byerly. I don't do tribal. I'm too good for that. I do new school work, and I'm this and that. That's fucking stupid. Today, if you would like to have a full bodysuit of tribal, I will happily do it at my hourly rate. Please, for the love of God, come get it and help me feed my family. I do not give a shit what you want. I'm happy to do it. But then it was ego. And you know, it's like being the smartest kid with Down syndrome, you know? So I'm not hating on any mental illness or anything, but it's the idea of I was popular in Humble, Texas, a small little town on the outskirts of Houston. That was cool. It was cool for me in the moment. It made me feel like I had became something, and that was something I needed at that point in time. But that feeling also drove me into a lot of unsuccess and a lot of misery. And by that little bit of fame and popularity in a small area, it made me search for things that I look at now at this age, and I'm like, man, if I could just have a DeLorean and go back and knock the shit out of you, that'd be great. But I couldn't. So back to 2006, I share this booth, Van and I share this booth with Mike DeMasi and Mario Rosenau. I do a really cool tattoo of a zombie on an old friend of mine, and I thought it was an amazing tattoo. I look at it now and I'm like, you piece of shit. But at that point in time, he thought it was great and I thought it was great. And the ultimate goal in tattooing is to make the customer happy. Hold on, I'll get back to this. At that point in time, I'm watching Mike DeMasi and Mario Rosenau do these amazing tattoos. Amazing. I mean, so far beyond my pay grade that I'm just in awe, and I'm learning, and it was amazing. And I built relationships with these guys that have never died. You know, I looked up to them, I respected them. I have traveled to work with them. I've gotten to take immense knowledge from these guys. To this day, I mean, I haven't worked the convention in Las Vegas in a couple of years now, but even with social media and everything like that, there's connections that stay. You know, Nico Hurtado is probably one of the most famous tattoo artists on the planet right now. He tattoos The Rock, and The Rock converses with him on a regular basis. And you know, I mean, I don't think there's a better tattoo artist today, in my opinion. However, that is within a primarily hyper-realistic art world, and he is killing it. I mean, him and Mike DeVries are just top of the industry. But I would see that guy in Las Vegas every year, and every year he'd be like, "Hey, Ronnie, man, how have you been? It's great to see you." Da, da, da. And this, I mean, we're talking about the best tattoo artist in the world. He didn't know me as anybody. He didn't know me as Ronnie Byerly, the tattoo artist. He knew me as this kid that was respectful to him, and he was respectful to me, and that's human. Human is what's important. It's just having some fucking respect. That's what's lost. I've never dealt with a lot of shit out of successful tattoo artists. I've only dealt with it out of jealous tattoo artists and egotistical tattoo artists. The successful ones are just happy and thankful to be successful, and they only reinvest in themselves and reinvest in themselves and reinvest in themselves until they do become great. The problem is that you want that greatness and you want that fame so early. You need to have it in your 20s, because what if you fucking burn out, right? But you haven't learned enough. You haven't suffered enough. You haven't put your time in, you know? And I think maybe that's what earned me a little bit of respect, is at least in the right situations, I stayed humble and I asked questions, and I didn't let my ego get ahead of me. And instead of thinking like, I'm Ronnie Byerly, you're Nico Hurtado, it's great, you're not so great, you know, but you know, whatever. Instead, I was like, hey man, what can I learn from you? Can I stand here and watch you tattoo for the next hour? I just want to see what you're doing different. You know what he was doing different? He was reinvesting in themselves. These guys put themselves back through, once they became successful and amazing tattoo artists, they took time out of their work and out of their family and reinvested to go back to school, go to the Art Institute. Mike DeVries returned to the Art Institute to become an instructor there, right? He makes way more money tattooing, but he's so passionate about what he does, he decided to reinvest, and not just in himself, and in others, because he's a good human being. He's not egotistical, you know? I mean, once this industry became so popular amongst really everybody, because of TV shows and I mean, social media, it's just vast growth. everybody they all wanted a bite of it. They all thought that this was an easy way in. The truth is you can trace a line. If you can just keep a steady hand, you can trace a line, and that's possible. I know some people in the past that did really good tattoos. They couldn't draw at all. They more than likely couldn't draw a solid stick figure if they wanted to, but they could trace. Back then, within my ego, I'd be like, whatever, you can't even draw. This is fucking stupid. Well, you know what they did? They made a good living. They supported their families. They didn't let their egos get in the way of what the number one goal is. And the number one goal is being ethical and making a good living. All right? As long as you make a good living, you do a good tattoo, what else is there? The only thing else is an ego. And an ego is only going to dig you deeper and deeper. Now, as I've grown as a tattoo artist, there's different things that I've learned. Primarily, I went through some years of depression. I had to borrow a lot. I just in the last year and a half, 2 years, paid all that off. I had to reinvent myself. I had to take a step back from tattooing, and I went into MMA and working out and all that because I had to fix my head, and my head had to get right. Well, my head's right now, It's still a little fucked up, but it's mostly right. And that put me in a position to be a better father, to meet my wife, to be a good husband, and to be an inspirational person to others. Not an egotistical person, but to do what I could to help others feel as good as I was working on trying to feel. And that, once again, is human. That is the human nature of a good person, is to just hope that your entire circle is successful, not to try and be jealous of individuals and try and be above it. I mean, like, everybody rise together, My close group of friends, we all are helping each other in individual ways to all grow together so that we can have our own little fucking neighborhood with our own little bar in the middle and a fucking turret gun fence all the way around the thing and keep everybody the fuck out. But until then, we have to keep working hard. The ultimate goal here is to make a good living, though, correct? You can be a purist all you want. You can be an egotistical person all you want. But if you don't have a work ethic, it doesn't matter. You can say, I do things this way. I'm good at this. That's great. But if you don't make a living doing it, you have to go do something else. And then that has to become your hobby because you have to survive. The only difference is if you have someone in your life that will deal with your bullshit, deal with you not paying any bills, deal with you being unsuccessful, and they will support you through that, and they are happy to, under the pretense of one day you're gonna be famous and make it. Okay, that's possible. Some people make investments that way. And if that's the way your family is run, then that's fine. However, there's a lot of us out there that didn't have anybody like that in our lives. We didn't have a support system that was like, hey, you're fucked up. I'm going to cover you until you figure it out. So hopefully you figure it out, and then we'll be good. That's not the case. I always had to survive. Mechanic in the morning. However it worked. My dream was to be a famous tattoo artist, but tattooing took second place to being a mechanic because being a mechanic at that time paid more, all right? So fast forward to 2019, okay? I'm a humble man. I'm a good man. I'm a good father, and I'm a good husband. Did I live my years of being a little sketchy here and there? Yeah, I did. Have I burnt some bridges? Absolutely. But the main thing I like to pride myself on is that I never lied. I never stabbed anybody in the back, and I never stole. And that's the biggest thing. I never fucking stole. All right? At no point did I ever cross my own morals. I never felt guilt in the middle of the night. I never ruined my name on the basis of stabbing somebody in the back. My success, my grind, my hustle has never been pitching a lie to somebody else to get them to cover my ass so that I can continue just being a piece of shit. Instead, I put in the fucking work. I put in the work, and I worked hard and hard and hard and harder and harder and harder until finally things are working out. 20 years in this industry. 20 fucking years. February will be the beginning of my 21st year. I just now think that I'm successful. I had years of popularity and, people coddling my ego. My ego. This is my first year that I think that I'm actually successful. I made a really good living. I do fine. My daughter is happy. She's healthy. She's very well taken care of on her mom's side and on my side. She has a great stepmom. She's happy. Her stepmom's happy. Her stepmom works hard, and we have a happy household. Everything's good. That's success. Okay. I've taken a lot of recent, flack over my tattoo process. Now, my tattoo process has grown and evolved. It grew and evolved because I had the time to put in this industry to earn that evolution, okay? So when somebody that hasn't put time in, somebody that hasn't earned it like I have, I really don't want to hear your shit, okay? It's invalid because one, you're not making any money, and two, your ego is far beyond your reputation, and three, you're not putting out good work. So if you have an argument with my tattoo process, maybe you should just take notes, okay? Let's go back to, there's a drawing thing, okay? So one of these people is saying that I rely on Google, okay? This is a recent jab. I mean, there's been other jabs, but this is the recent one. This is kind of my favorite one because it's the most fiscally responsible one for me. And the argument is so invalid that I would like to tell you about it. Their argument is that they hand draw everything. They say that they hand draw everything. So they say that they post a picture of a light box. A light box is just, obviously a box that shines a light through a dim screen so that you can trace an image. So you put one image on here, a blank piece of paper on top of it, the light shines through and you can trace. So I don't necessarily consider tracing hand drawing, but whatever. Now, if you only come to work for 2 or 3 hours a day, then okay. If you only need to make $100 to $200 in that amount of time, okay. I would prefer different. I prefer to take my hourly rate from the time I get there to the time I fucking leave. So I use that time wisely. Let's take a pocket watch, for example. That's a pretty popular item today to get tattooed. So this is a good one to use. Am I gonna sit there and am I gonna pull out my colored pencils so I can draw the levels, mediums of the shape of this pocket watch and everything else, to sketch and sketch and sketch, just so that I can show the customer, like, hey, look, I hand drew this for an hour, 2 hours, and then throw it on a light box and hardline every part of this pocket watch. Yes, for certain applications. However, those applications are less than the norm depending on the tattoo. It has to depend on what the customer wants. If you're this purist that believes things can only be your way, then that's fine. That's fine if you don't make a living doing it. If it's just your hobby, then you're only trying to focus on one chapter. However, this is the only way you make a living. You can't. You have to adapt to the customer, and the customer is who pays you. It doesn't fucking matter if it's only the way you'll do it. Now, you can learn to sell yourself in the right way, and you can learn to be convincing and give good advice and move them in the right direction of the way you think the tattoo should be. That's fine. But you should also get paid for that time. So, if you like going to work for free for a couple of hours so that you can say you went to work, so that you can just get to the bar faster to get fucked up, that's fine. Now, if you make a living selling cocaine at the bar or something like that, I mean, I guess okay. If that's what you do for actual income, I really don't give a shit. But to come back on me for my tattoo process, well, that's just ignorant. All right. So it's 2019. Google has fucking everything. I'm also good at Photoshop. I can take almost any image off of Google, I can put it in Photoshop and create an outline, all right? I don't need an accurate stencil. If you drink until 5 o'clock in the morning and your hand is shaky, then you more than likely really need an accurate stencil. At that point, you still have to follow it correctly. I don't need accurate stencils, okay? I, for the most part, Sharpie things on people, but if I am printing an image, I would rather throw an image that has already been drawn 100,000 times. Search it on Google. Search any fucking thing you want for a tattoo, anything, on Google, and you will find hundreds of thousands of images of the same thing. So let's say you want a buffalo. Let's say you want a fucking buffalo. Search, now people do this wrong. People will search buffalo tattoos, women's buffalo tattoos, sexy buffalo tattoos. That's not it. Search buffalo drawing. Search buffalo drawing outline. Search buffalo drawing black and white. It's fair, right? You take all these things and you can take an image, you can throw it in Photoshop, and you can change it into just a gray, I can blank on this, grayscale, whatever, and change the brightness and contrast levels and develop an outline. Now, it's not going to be something that's perfect. It is not going to be a flawless outline like if you took a micron pen and traced out your original sketch and then took that and put it in a Thermofax. That would be your perfect stencil, which is fine. If you're into that, that's fine. However, I don't need those things. I like to freehand. So I will make a base shit garbage stencil to control space value and how I want the certain primary shape of the image to fit this part of the body, and I put on. And for the most part, I just follow where I want my hand to go, but I have that stencil there for boundaries, okay? Go back to a pocket watch. So if the pocket watch, I find a drawing, I can get it from a 3/4 angle, I can get it straight on, you can have a skeleton version, you can whatever you want. There's hundreds of thousands of drawings, outlines, clip art, whatever, that will give you these base stencils, okay? Is that what my tattoo looks like? Absolutely not. And there's no reason for me to worry about that. What it does do is it gives me the opportunity to make a stencil within a matter of 5 to 10 minutes, okay? That I am charging people for these things, okay? I do not work for free. So since I'm charging them for it, wouldn't they rather that I'm only taking 5 to 10 minutes to create a stencil because I really only need boundaries, and then I'm tattooing them, and they're getting the actual thing they're paying for just quickly. So that's my view. I want to be getting paid while I'm doing it. I charge for drawing time, but I don't feel right about charging a full hourly rate just for the drawing time. So if I'm drawing for 2 hours, then what am I charging them? 25 bucks, 50 bucks for 2 hours of my work and my effort? Absolutely not. If somebody brings a picture in, nine times out of 10, somebody's like, this is what I want. It's a Pinterest picture. It's just a picture of somebody else's tattoo. It is completely immoral to take somebody else's individual artwork and copy that tattoo. Okay, now we're talking about mediums. Regularly, I'll post something I found on Instagram. I follow this page called The World of Pencils. It's so many different artists. It's amazing work. every day I see some really cool shit on there. The other day, I posted 3 different pictures that I found on the internet and said, would love to do something like this. This would be very cool, This is how you promote yourself, okay? Within 30 minutes of each one of those posts, I took a $100 deposit for each one and set an appointment for it, all right? That was just at home watching TV, saw some random shit on Instagram, posted it, made $300, okay? If you have an argument with that, you're a fucking idiot, okay? When I do these things, I also post artist credit because I didn't draw him. Let's say Greg Capello or Cuplio, however you say his name, phenomenal comic book artist, right? Does amazing things. One of my favorite tattoos of all time is this Joker I did that's of his, okay? I didn't draw it, but the truth is that my mind doesn't even go in the sick fucking direction that his does to draw it in that way. Did I do the tattoo? Did I do it as cool as he drew it? Absolutely. Is it one of my favorite tattoos I've ever done? Absolutely. Is that customer still super proud of it, blasted all the time and everything? Absolutely. Does it still look as good today as it did when I did it 4 years ago? Absolutely. I also gave him credit through the whole thing. That's just, it's honorable. It makes sense. I didn't draw it originally. Didn't. But he is not a tattoo artist. Okay? So nobody can go to him and be like, hey, Greg, can you tattoo that on me? And he'd be like, whew. I can try, you know. Could he be a great tattoo artist? More than likely, all right? He would just have to learn the application. However, he is not. And he's made a really good living not doing tattooing, but rather being a famous comic book artist. So why would he divert from that to become a tattoo artist? Unless he made more money in one way and decided he wanted to go in that direction. So it's really just, that's his call. I feel no moral guilt for sharing somebody else's drawing with their name that drew it, tagged in it, and saying this is what I like to do. Sitting on the couch in 30 minutes made $300. You know, I argue that. I don't give a fuck. To post things and say that I don't draw because I am fiscally responsible with my time during a day, well, that's just being a fucking idiot. If you want to continue to not make any money and let your chick work overtime at a bar to cover your ass and your expenses and your rent and your car note, then that's cool. And if she's cool doing it, then that's fucking cool, man. I don't care. But don't come back on me saying that I'm doing something wrong when I'm feeding my family because I figured out a good process. Now, within the purest idea of things, there's the other people that say certain types of drawing. So I've dealt with this the whole industry. I have kind of like a new school feel. I actually appreciate more of a hyper-realistic style. I started out kind of being like a new schoolish type artist. That was the stuff I looked up to, and I really like that. Since then, I've developed my own style. Now, I think that I'm talented, and I think I do a really good job across the board of every type of style. I've learned to adapt to whatever project comes my way over the years because I'm trying to make the customer happy. There were years where I only wanted to do portraits. That was it. I just want to do portraits. I'm a portrait artist, blah, blah, blah. Fuck that, all right? That's not what everybody wants. American traditional. I don't personally like doing it. It's not my favorite thing in the world. I don't like the way you use a super wide liner needle to make the lines. I like sharp points. I like those kind of things. However, a very clean American traditional tattoo does look super fucking cool, all right? It really does. And it has that old school nostalgia, and it takes that tradition out of things, and it looks good. So if you take your modern levels of ink and saturation and clean, thick line work, it looks really cool. Is it what I really want to be doing? No. Am I happy to do it? Absolutely. The difference in an only traditional artist and an only portrait artist is that an only portrait artist can do a good traditional tattoo. An only traditional artist cannot do a portrait. The reason I say this is because it took a lot more learning about art itself, values, photography, and whatnot to be able to do a good portrait. It really only required learning tracing and saturation to do an American traditional tattoo. And I'm not bashing on anything. But the thing is solely traditional tattoo artists found a niche, okay? And it is popular. does look cool, and they are happy making a living doing that. And if that's the case, then fucking great, right? But the majority of those artists never went on to really reinvest and learn more artistically about things like realism and portrait work. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. If they're happy being a solely traditional artist, then that's fucking great. But you can't go rip on the realistic artist for doing a portrait because it's not what's in your tradition or however the fuck you feel about it. Okay, there's a difference in styles, and that's fine. But if you only mimic another style, you can't rip on other people's version of art. You don't get to say those things. If you don't like the way their tattoos look artistically, you don't actually get to make a judgment if you don't have your own individual style. The reason I say this is because you're mimicking, okay? I'm not talking about copying artwork. I'm talking about mimicking, okay? I personally have developed my own individual style. I can go across the board on a lot of styles, but if somebody asks me individually to draw something, it's gonna be in my style, and I enjoy that. But a lot of times, the request is what's popular today. Most people don't think for themselves on a creative basis very easily, so they scan Instagram, they scan Pinterest, and they find these images of other people's tattoos they like. And so when they get to their appointment, they're like, I want this. Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do is my version of that. Does that require 3 hours of drawing? It doesn't. It requires me making a boundary stencil, moving forward, making money, feeding my kids. You know, that's my way of doing things, in my opinion. If you don't like doing things that way, that's fine. But there's no reason to go backwards on me for it, so that you can flex your ego and feel better about your failure. If your only desire is to be a well-known Japanese traditional tattoo artist, that's cool. I think that stuff looks really cool. But you're not Japanese. And down the street, there's some really traditional Japanese traditional tattoo artists, and they're really good at what they do. So I personally can't imagine why a true collector would see them right here on the street and be like, well, that guy's $150 an hour and his work is flawless, and he grew up in that, and he knows the tradition and exactly what he's doing. But I should go over here to this guy who's Mexican, didn't grow up in that shit, but just really likes the Japanese culture. He's $150 an hour, but I had to wait for an appointment with this guy for 6 months, and this guy's available right now or tomorrow, but this guy will sit down for 8 hours and knock out the job, and this guy will do 2 hours, but 30 minutes is outline. The other time is him trying to figure out how to draw like a Japanese man. Well, that doesn't make sense to me. The problem is that at this point, you have not found a niche. You have become obsessed with a certain style, and that's fine. That's fine. But you have to learn how to market it. More so, that style has to become your hobby. Okay? That has to become what you want to do, and you have to adapt to what a customer wants if this is how you're making a living. Okay? So, if you don't like doing tribal, that's cool. However, I will be happy to do as much tribal as you want for $150 an hour and bring home a nice paycheck. It'll be great. At no point will I bag on the customer for it. I will never tell them that they suck or they want stupid shit or it's so fucking 90s or 2000s, you know? I'll be like, yeah, fuck yeah, dude, that's what you like? Fuck yeah, let's get it done, you know? And I will spend the day at work, those 8 hours, the way I was meant to, and that's making a living. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot else to say on the subject. I guess it's just that I'm not a famous tattoo artist. I'm never going to be. I've accepted that, and I'm totally okay with it. I worked in the casino shops in Las Vegas. There's a guy watching right now I used to work with. He's a great and successful artist. Back then, he was the mentality that I have right now, and he was making a great living and doing great and killing it. I wish that I would have the mentality back then, but instead I was still just like, I'm in Las Vegas, you know, I'm fucking killing it, man. Chicks think I'm fucking cool, man, you know. I was a dumbass. Now, I'm happy to make a customer happy. So, if there's anything that you would love to have tattooed, I would love to do it. I would love to do a flawlessly technical job of it too, all right? So, back to that, do whatever kind of work you want, but you gotta be able to applicate it correctly. And if you can't applicate it in a flawless manner, you can't really argue about how it was developed over here. If you can draw an amazing thing, but you tattoo it like a sack of shit, you have no argument, all right? What you have is a need for learning. That's only possible if you drop an ego. If you drop an ego and just start asking questions to the people that have made a footprint in this industry, 2 fucking decades, you know? And I'm old. I'm still young enough to figure it out, but this chick just commented on here, said, but you'll make fun of existing tattoos. Yeah, I'll make fun of existing tattoos. You had an anchor on your vagina, and it's, hey, we covered it up, you know? It was an anchor, you know, like, hold them down. But that's a great example. This chick, Chelsea, just commented on it. She's a cool customer of mine. We made jokes about everything because she had an anchor on her vagina, and we covered it up, and it worked. But the whole time, we're actually making jokes about the decisions we made in our youth. And would I have done that anchor on her vagina back in the day? From a dude perspective, yeah. But from a tattoo artist perspective, I'm like, that's just a piece of flesh off the wall, man. I'm Ronnie Byerly. I'm too cool for that. Let me like freehand something. Maybe you should get like a portrait of your mother down by your vagina. You know, like fucking retard. Fast forward 2019, am I happy to cover it up for you? Absolutely. I'm covered in very old mistake decisions. It was near your vagina, Chelsea. It was far enough away that it was, you know, consensual. The point is you can't bag on somebody for finding a good way to make a living and support their family because your opinion is different. As long as everything sticks in morality, if you make a good living supporting your family and murdering innocent people, then yeah, you have the right to judge that person. But within an egotistical industry, you don't get to make those statements. You don't get to, and you're invalid. You yourself is invalid. Once your name resonates through your specific niche of what you like, that's cool, you know? Build that customer base. Build your business and be successful. But as long as the only thing that anybody knows you for is that your chick is pretty, you don't get to say a whole lot. All right. Everybody have a good night. Also, tattoo gift certificates for sale right now. It's almost Christmas. You need them. Your family will love you for it. And I will do whatever the fuck they want. Good night.